the ancient Jewish sages, Adam was not the first humanoid, okay, because there's different, Adam was distinct, but they're all seems to be humanoid in their physiology, all right? First in the earth, and they were full civilization that had risen up and had been destroyed. This concept can be found in the oral traditions of Judaism, but only hinted at in the scriptures. Now, if you've been with me, you understand. This is why the oral Torah, the Agada, the legends, a lot of these understandings, these are kept, but they're sort of kept in a different category of teachings. Like I said before, how this was the oral Torah, the understanding that was given to the elders with Moshe. All right. Now, and it's also, but this concept is in our text, but only as hints. And this is the point I tell you, if you can understand parts. The second you have the literal level, right? So we're not talking about the literal animals. There's a hint. We're talking about a hint of something deeper. This is called a remez. There are tons of remezes in the text that point to the sod level, which is the deeper understandings. All right. According to Bereshit, or Genesis 1:1-2, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. And the earth was, or became, and this is where you look at it, became formless and empty. The earth was without form and void, desolate of people, empty of all animals. So obviously we are talking about an advanced, and these things there, as you study it, advanced civilizations that got destroyed. All right, and there is a cycle. Now let's go into how this goes a little bit deeper. Now, let me take this concept of, let me talk a little bit about Gilgal, okay? Let's see, I wonder where I should go. Because ultimately, I just want to put the sabbaticals, there's something called sabbaticals of creation, that they take this concept of a Shemitah, a Jubilee, these cycles of time, and they apply them in the math to larger epochs or ages of time. And that's how it's all kind of classified in there. I'm going to read you a quote now, oh my gosh, out of this book. Anybody who wants to fry their brain, oh my gosh, Sefer Yitzhara, okay? This book is so highly encoded and encrypted, but it's so awesome because if you can ply your way through this, you will begin to understand according to the tradition, which I believe, it was written by Abraham, and it wasn't even, a lot of these times, you have to understand these great patriarchs, a lot of this understanding obviously came with Adam, right? And was redacted in different, Enoch redacted a lot for his generations. Shem redacted a lot. Abraham redacted a lot. This is written by Abraham again, but Moshe redacted it a lot. What it means is to write it down, keep it, try to always keep it locked down for all succeeding generations. All right. So anyways, there's a footnote on page, let me just do a page I'm on, 189. Okay. Now, so we know that according to this, the 7 times 49 years or 50 years, a total of well, let me just show you, because they said, let me forget that. This also relates to the concept of sabbaticals of creation. All right. So we are now, and that's a code word for the world of Beria. The other thing I told you have to always understand, that the text is written and how they keep this information is because there are different levels, different worlds out there. Are in sort of different time cycles. All right, we're down here in the world of Asiya, and we literally do have a sun and moon that rule over us and give us 24-hour days. But we know from the text, because the prophets, our writers, our sage Moshe, these people know the bigger picture. They condense the larger cycles into these concepts. All right, so there is what they call the sabbaticals of creation. But creation is the world of Beria. all right, which is the third level of the worlds. The second level is the word Yetzirah. And this is so important to understand because there are levels in all these things where certain angelic orders live and certain things go on, and a lot of history, so to speak, has happened according to these different levels. All right, so Satan was kicked out of the world of Berea. All right, down. Okay, this is what the story is telling us. All right, kicked out of heaven and told he was going to die the death of a man, meaning his cycle. So I mean, there's just a lot. I don't want to get too rabbit traily here. There's a lot of information, but let's see what they have to say. This relates to the concept of sabbaticals of creation, where each Jubilee period consists of 49,000 years. Okay, so if 7 times 7 is 49, all you do is add the extras. It automatically extrapolates itself into the larger number. All right. Of that original archetype. All right, so 49, a cycle, a Shemitah cycle of 7 times 7, which is 49, that became a Jubilee, is now becoming 49,000 years. There will be 7 such Jubilee periods. All right, this is another thing that is in our text. And the universe will be therefore last a total of, and they say 343 years. Now I'm trying to think, but if you take the math, these are divine years. So then you have a thing of a divine years. We know that, so there's divine years, each one consisting of, 365 earthly years. Thus the total time between the initial expansion, when Yah spoke, and the collapse of this universe, because he says, we know he will make a total end. We know that there's going to be a new heaven, a new earth, a whole new cycle. See, this is how you can understand this thing is so much bigger. All right, the total time between the initial expansion and final collapse of the universe will be now 125 basically billion years, which is basically what their secular science is sort of saying. So what I'm trying to say is these words can expand concepts and contract according to the context of the understanding that's being put forward in the verse, the text. So in other words, yes, there's a literal 21st, but there's also a hint that it's referring to ages or epochs or eons of greater duration. All right. Now, but I didn't lose you on that. All right. Because I'm going to go into some more proof text and prove why this is important. Because what I have to say is, if you're going to understand this world of beasts, and on the 5th day, the fish, okay, and the 2 great dragons or serpents, you know, you're going to have to get out of a literal 24-hour day, because it's not there. All right. Let me just say this, because another thing I haven't really unpacked this, but I have to say there is a difference. This is how he presents. Only Yahweh, or let's say with El, the highest word we have for Yahweh Elohim, is outside of time, is eternal. All right, see, this is where I guess you have to have the concept, the whole Kabbalistic concept of En Sof, who is totally outside of time. All right, he has no beginning, he has no end. There is a word for eternity that really implies no beginning and no end. But there's other words that imply, and the word age is a word that implies just extreme longevity. All right, that's why if you look at the word olam, and it says, I think that's the word, because I have it on my notes. We're going to come to that. It's antiquity, long duration, and futurity, meaning it just sees all the, but it's not eternal. Okay, so the soul of man is a very olam of long duration. All right, but presently it has not been created with this concept of eternity. That's it. Okay, so I know these are really hard things to wrap your mind around. I hope, but just to let me give you this, because it is hinted at in our text. It's so interesting. One of the aspects of the future world will be extreme longevity on the part of mankind. All right. Regarding this period, is foretold in Isaiah 65:20, as one proof says, as a child, one shall die at 100 years old. This is talking about the Olam Haba, the world to come, right? So a child will die at 100 years old and be considered totally young. All right. So how does that happen? So according to Rabbi Isaac of Akko, the lifespan will become so extended that one who dies at the age of 100 will be considered like a child currently dying at the age of 3. So if you do the math in the sense, it says thus the normal lifespan will be approximately 33 times its present value, or around 2,000 years. Isaac of Akko further states that these will be divine years, as the human lifespan will eventually be extended to the order of 80 million years. All right, so, which is, again, these things conceptually can go really deep. But what I want to tell you is, again, it says that a child who dies at the age of 3, so you have to harmonize. There is no contradiction in Scripture. You just have to harmonize and try to get the deeper understandings of where these people are getting these concepts from. All right, a child who dies at 100 years old is going to be like an infant, like a newborn who dies at birth. All right, so how can you have that unless you are expanding time, unless we're moving that arc and we're expanding our concepts? Okay, let me go now into a couple of, well, 2 more things I got to say. Two more important things. Hope you're sticking with me. This concept of Gilgal, cycle, rotates, flows, rolls, okay? It's a secular emotion. And what it really, again, time for us, we are ruled by, that's why it says on the 4th day was created a Maseroth, and let me screen share this, because to me, right now, where I'm at, I'm not saying I have it all figured out. I'm not saying that I will have to come back and correct myself someday, or that I'll get greater understanding. But today, this would be the worldview, so to speak, of the cosmology. Let me see, that I would subscribe to. But let me just say, the Maseroth is this concept that there's a, the heavens declare the glory, and they are for signs and for seasons for us. Now, those words, again, have tons of archetypal information packed into them. And for festivals, we know this whole kind, the festival cycle yearly. We do the same thing over and over. It's not an accident that these things cycle through, and they give you, when you study the feast there, there's so much information packed into the feast in terms of what they're doing and what they're representing in the larger picture of the redemption plan and all this. So what is really, so this gets into, well, here, let me screen share this, say if I can give you a better visual for this. See this? So I think that, there's a verse that says we are the apple of his eye. See, understand something. The pupil, I think the best explanation for the whole cosmology of the earth, actually, or what we're living in, this whole Adam caveman universe, is the human eye and the pupil. And we are the pupil. We are the earth, where what we're made of, what we rest on top of the eye. Okay? And so I don't believe in that the round spinning ball earth, it's one of the planets that's revolving around the sun. I am geocentric. I believe that everything in the heavens revolves around the sun, that we are the center, the apple of Yahweh's eye. Everything is focused on us, revolving around us. These things were made for us. These heavens were made for us, for signs and for seasons. So this is showing, this has got some of the major constellations in it. So this whole idea of the Maseroth, this whole idea of the heavens above us is, and I've been through a lot of this, the mazal of it, it really is, and this is what Ezekiel in his wheels, he's seeing this incredible like if we could see, if you could take the cover off of the clock, so to speak, and see all the machinations inside it of how the wheels turn and those things, that's what Ezekiel saw. He kind of like saw all the heavens, and then he saw everything that they were doing, and it just kind of blew him away. But this is the concept. Now, whether, again, I don't believe it's a round globe. I do believe it is sort of, it's on the surface. Let me just say this and I'm going to do a teaching on this because I keep alluding to it. The text, now that we're on the subject of incredibly, hold on a second. Let's get back to this. Now that we're on the subject of heavens and earth, there are 7 firmaments. This is why I said a lot of people, if they would go deeper, a lot of this arguing going on today, and there are 7 levels of earth. That's in our text. That's in the Hebrew words. And I will get there, starting to really unplug these. So Rakia is just one of the firmaments, all right? Eretz and Adamah are just 2 levels of earth, okay? So that explains a lot too, but that's for another teaching. So I'm back over here to this concept like this Mazareth, this zodiac, which is really showing us that there's if you could see what is the energy flow, these wheels that cycle, that encircle, encompass, surround, complete a cycle, do a circuit, all right, around this whole, the lower half of the heavens and the earth, all right, and they directly influence us. So that is why it's important to understand that we are, in the Sefer Yetzirah, it talks about time, or Galgal is the king over time. And there's some really deep stuff in that, okay? Now, one of the reasons, I have to give this last point here, I think Josephus, a first century historian, tells us, and I think that this does make a lot of sense, that Noah and his forefathers lived so many years, because they lived so many years, the ancients, this is one of the things, especially, well, Enoch lived, it says 365, which is interesting, right? It's just that number. But, Noah lived over 900 years. I think close to that. Shem lived about 600. And, these guys were living 7, 8, 6, 900 years. The older Methuselah, Adam lived 9. Okay, so that's a long time. So the point is that Yahweh has afforded them, because they had these longer lifespans, because on account of their virtue and the good use that they made good use of it. In other words, they were able to, this is the point, to calculate the astronomical and geometrical equations and discoveries of how the heavens and the earth and relates to it. That's why this information, in my opinion, if we could ever get it pure again, and it will happen in the millennium, Yeshua said we will get all this information back. But that's to me why the ancients really did have an amazing amount more of information of how the heavens operate. For one thing, because they lived longer, so they could see these cycles. They could see the patterns and the repeats, and they could understand it so much more. So unless they had lived for these great lengths of time, a lot of the information we wouldn't be able to have it in our transmissions, knowledge transmissions. Now, the reason this is important, because let's go to this one more share here. Okay, so a couple of proof texts. Now, so here in, let's put that up there. In Psalm 105, 6 through 8, it says, O seed of Abraham, his servant, O sons of Jacob. So here we are talking about the Adamic, Adamic lineage, especially coming through Abraham and Jacob. Abraham was told that he would be, because when you understand all the different species and what's going on, why it's not evolution, it's hybridization. We are at a war with other races. All right, and not all of them are in obedience to Yahweh. Many of them are out to absolutely destroy us, and they have tried to destroy us many, many times in the past. He has remembered his covenant forever. He is Yahweh, our Elohim, His judgments are in all the earth. Okay. The word which he commanded to 1,000, all right, generations. The covenant which he made with Abraham and his oath to Isaac. Then he confirmed it to Jacob for a statute, to Israel as an everlasting covenant, saying, to you I will give the land of Canaan as the portion of your inheritance. Now there is way more information here than meets the eye, but let me just give you this real quick. If it says here, the word which he commanded to 1,000 generations. Now let's just say, let's go down here. Let me go to this piece right here. If it is 70 years is the average for a generation, right? Because there's another, I don't have the Bible verse here, but there's one that says that, 70, maybe by reason of strength, 80 years. If you do the math, 70 times 80, no, 1,000 generations times 70, the average is 68,180 years. So don't tell me that our sages have not encrypted this information in our text. It's just, I never went and did the math before. I just never did, but now do it. We got 68,180 years. You round it off basically to 70,000. That's a very important number. 70, the cycles of 7. All right. Now, even if you took this other verse that says that 120, some people use this one. So in Genesis 6:3, so Yahweh said, Adonai said, my spirit will not contend with man forever, for he is mortal. His days shall be 120 years. Look at this. First of all, his days. Okay, so we know a day can be 1,000 years, right? So what is it referring to? Can be 120 years. All right. So if you do the math on this one, you get 120 times 1,000, you get 120,000 years. All right. So these cycles, these deeper levels of time understanding is built into these texts. We've just never been taught this. Now, let me go back to this one. The Lord Yahweh, you have been our dwelling place through all generations. And what I want to tell you, if you study out this word, and I have a YouTube on it, one of the things I first saw early on in the book of Genesis 1 and verse 2, the word genealogies, genealogical record, the generations, that is what he says he was showing everyone. So the words are coded. So this is what we're saying. Yahweh has many generations, cycles, ages of time of the sons of Elohim, cycled through many, many, many ages, eons of time. Many have, everyone has been destroyed up until this one, and we're coming into another. This is why the text is telling us these are built-in cycles. Now this gets so much, but I want you to say this, that that Yahweh, you have been our dwelling place through all generations. We cannot limit that word, because that word built into it, if you proof text with all of the other texts, combine it to get the total context, it is talking about all of the ages. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the earth and world, again, different Hebrew words, from everlasting to everlasting, you are Elohim. And this is the point. See, you brought forth the earth and world. Two different Hebrew words are in there, okay? From everlasting to everlasting, and I didn't look it up, but I will bet you anything that that is the word would mean of a long period of time, long durations, okay? So let's do last one. We did that, the average of 70. Let's round it off to 70,000 years. Deuteronomy 23 says, remember the days of old. Okay, it is this word. Everlasting, old, olam, long duration, antiquity, futurity. So things are really stretched out into far futures, or going back way, and consider the years of all generations. Ask your father, and he will inform you, your elders, and they will tell you. These words, father and elders refers to Torah sages. Okay, these are the elders. These are the people who are, the white, that's why I call them the white-haired bearded ones, because they have a lot of information, deep information about a lot of this stuff. All right. So there, in a nutshell, are some of these concepts about time. Because when you go into now, let me end up, because this is where we'll start going. So what I wanted to say, if I just had to get that out before we keep unpacking these, and I'm going to start with the first one made on the 5th day, fish, all right, where it does, okay, so if you, and I mentioned this, if you were reading the Sumerian kings list, I mean, some of those kings, quote unquote, had reigned for up to 63,000 years. And so most people say summarily dismiss it all, but they know it's in the text. There are great ages. All right. Now, let me give you this, because we can take this information now and harmonize. This is something, make all the crooked places straight, because one of the greatest things about the deeper traditions, that is deeper understandings that is in our text, is it will harmonize all of the information out there, so to speak. This is a quote from Cicero. Cicero, who was an ancient, because see, they've had a problem with this. Like, I mean, just it isn't just us modern secular people who want to just keep everything in a tight box. Okay, Cicero, who is a famous, I'm sure he's BC. Can't remember exactly what his years were. This is a quote from him. We must condemn the Babylonians and those who in the region of Caucasus pretend to have observed the heavens and courses of the stars. See, he's referring back to, okay, so the writings of Abraham, these ancients who were plotting and receiving information in the stars and understood the deeper cycles of time, okay? He says we got to condemn them. And the Babylonians, and this is trying to represent, Abraham came from Ur of Chaldea, which is north of Babylon. So we are talking, geographic area here. In the region of the Caucasus, pretend to observe the heavens and courses of the suns. We must condemn them, I say, of folly or vanity or impudence or just being crazy, my words, who assert that they have preserved upon monuments observations extending back during an interval of 470,000 years. Okay, so these witnesses are not all crazy. This is an understanding. All right. Now, it's always been a propaganda war, and it's always been now I'm going to get into this, which race is telling the story, which writings, because, we know that we have writings from our sages, but we know, like, if you look at the ancient tablets of thought that come from supposedly Atlantean priests living, okay, so that there are other writings on the planet that especially they're surfacing that are coming from different, I think, species streams, okay? So, now I told you the fish are the first ones, and can relate to, okay, so this is, how do I say this quickly? Certain sea divinities are thus intimately bound up with the practice of human skill. Now just listen to this, because the Telchines, somebody's word for a certain race, this is the word for what I would call Dag, the fish race, okay, were a class of half-human, half-fish Damians, okay, said to have been the first inhabitants of Rhodes, ancient Greece, Rhodes. These beings were at once revered for their metalwork. Let your ear get these buzzwords. These beings were at once revered for their metalwork and reviled for their death-dealing power of the evil eye. Okay, okay, so I just want you to get those concepts here. So there is a strain of storytelling that's truth in all of these different legends, because the Greek gods, this is the point I have to say, the first gods created were supposedly Dagon, Poseidon, the gods that came out of the sea. Now the sea, I told you, refers to the underworld, okay? Tartarus, Hades, the under the earth, under, so in the word, another word is chthonic. Chthonic relates to gods, deities, spirits, demons dwelling under. This is right off of Wikipedia. This is the definition. Under the earth, underworld, Hades. Usually Greek deities, subterranean. They live in the sea. All right. So this concept is not that they're coming in, and again, it's not that they live in the sea, they live in water. They live in a different dimension, which is right under. And when I do the 7 earths, I will show you, okay, these different dimensional levels. So it's all tracking. And now that we can expand our understanding of time and try to piece this thing back together. So I don't know, it's my journey. I think it's really incredible. I love it. I hope you're still with me. So on that note, hey, subscribe, hit the, what do you call that thing? The bell. Because I've seen a lot of people subscribe, maybe don't get my notification. So let's, maybe hit the bell, share this. I think this is good information. I think this is pretty cutting edge, and I think we're really, for those who can get it and run with it, I think we can make some leaps and bounds and putting our Torah understanding back into Hoyle, so to speak. So shalom and bless you, and I will see you again.